Hi everyone, I'm here with Chris Hines in beautiful Cornwall to talk about everything wetsuits in 2026. Chris himself doesn't really need any introduction, but I'll give him one anyway. He's most notably the co-founder of SAS, Surface Against Sewage. He was the director of sustainability at Eden Project, and not forgetting his time as assistant editor of Surf Scene. He's an iconic surf magazine that I had piles of as a kid and would pore over them. So actually that was my first introduction to you, wasn't SAS.
Wow.
And the closeness I have to that, but it was Surf Scene. And
Wow.
So for me, I'm very honoured to be here talking to you today.
Thank
so
you, Jimmy.
that's that.
Yeah.
These days, Chris, through his company, A Grain of Sand, is one of the most, at the forefront of environmental activism in the UK. And pleased to have you here. So
Lovely
thank
to
you
be
very,
here,
very much.
Jimmy.
So give us a little bit of background and your involvement in sort of the push for natural rubber in the wetsuit industry.
So I've lived here at Porthtowan. I have a House of Parliament Select Committee at home that says that Mr. Hines brought to our attention the case of Porthtowan, known by the locals as Porth Tampon, because of the dreadful state that it was in. And, that was the bit that kind of really fired us up on here in Snagness. But I guess my background and my interest in the environment goes back to being outside. My parents always used to take me to the beaches, up onto Dartmoor, and that creates that love for the natural environment. And if you love something, you will do what you can to protect it. And that has resulted in my life, I guess. So I still will do anything to stand up for this beach, and I will do anything to stand up for nature.
So how are you feeling about sort of the uptake of natural rubber at the moment? Because I know it's been a couple of years since the Big C premiered, a year or so. A very long time since the original Guardian expose on what was happening down there in Louisiana. With the companies that should be, producing these en masse, how do you think they're getting on?
I think we're kind of approaching endgame. So we started to become aware of it. And we've seen an increasing number of companies, buying into that, developing that, ordering the natural rubbers and pulling them through. And when you want to create positive change, you've got to commit, you've got to pull that through and deliver it into amazing products. You watch, there was questions earlier, it doesn't perform so well, it's not flexible enough, it doesn't keep you warm. Well, just watch, Jace Robinson, Noah Lane, and what they're doing in the conditions that they're surfing in. And I challenge pretty much 99% of surfers to say that they don't work. So we know the product's good enough. And it's just now that kind of last push through for companies to make that change. So I think it's gone from a slow resistance from the industry to now most of the industry embracing. And I think even if you went to the hardest companies who are still hanging on, they will still actually have it all behind the scenes. They'll be driving it forward and driving it forward pretty rapidly. But we, the customers, we, the surfers, we're buying this stuff. We have to choose and demand and pull it through with our own money. Of course, we want natural rubber wetsuits. And here's a little one. I looked up last night, I was talking to Katie, and I said, I wonder what the majority of condoms are made of. And they are made, the vast majority, of natural rubber latex.
Rubber.
Yeah. So, and we know that putting a bit of a sensitive part of our body into those, and then they're being put into a very sensitive part of the body. So that's that kind of thing. If they're good enough for that, then of course, we want that kind of natural thing around our bodies and in the sensitive oceans of the sea and all the ripples that come off that.
Yeah, I mean, if it's okay for that part, it's got to be okay for the rest, isn't it? Absolutely. And it's funny what you say about, I do remember those early whinges and concerns about the performance of natural rubber, and you don't really hear any of them these days, do you?
No, and this thing of pace, if I go back to when I was, 12, 13, 14, the wetsuits were appalling. So that's kind of like 40 years ago now, 50 years ago. But, they were really stiff. The best wetsuits we had in the world were really stiff and inflexible and used to give you massive, cuts on your neck and your underarms, etc. So the money that went into that and the change and the technology, of course we can make those changes. And it's just a slightly different material. The challenges are nothing like as big as going from where wetsuits were back in the kind of 80s and 90s to this little transition. It's nothing, it's not a big deal.
I see what you mean. It's everything you've spoken about so far just seems like to point to a lack of, there's no excuses left.
I think it's like little bits of resistance, and there's always naysayers out there. And there's like naysayers, like a classic one is on climate. So there's this brilliant survey, an organisation called 89%. And this was a survey of over 130,000 people in 100 different countries around the world. And they asked them what their biggest concern was. 89% of those people said that their governments should do far more to address climate change as the number one priority. But all of those people also thought they were in the minority. So you've got 89% of people saying, yeah, we want that. But 1% of people driving, another 10% of people who are uncertain, and those are the naysayers. And I think it's the same with the surfers. I think 89% of us will go, yeah, of course we want a natural rubber wetsuit, and of course we want our industry and the products we buy to be made in the most sustainable way, environmentally, but also socially as well.
And that takes you back to the sort of the three, was it the, you'll have to enlighten me, the three-pronged
triple bottom line.
Triple bottom line.
So one of my good friends is John Elkington. John Elkington is in his mid-70s now. He came to the SS Ball last year. And John wrote the first Green Consumer Guide back in 1987. He wrote a book called Holidays That Don't Cost the Earth. That's where I met him. But he also coined the phrase triple bottom line. And that's, you know, we've lived in a world where profit is the only driver, the only thing that people need to care about. And we're now shifting ever increasingly towards a world where decisions are made. Yes, you've got to make profit, but you've also got to have an environmental and a social bottom line as well. And we can do that. It's just making those flips.
So here's a question. A lot of people like to say they surf, or they like to surf rather, to escape and to you know, just put the outside world behind them. You know, you often hear that. What do you say to people that kind of don't want to hear about that and they just want the best deal for the highest performance wetsuit, and we don't care if it's petroleum based or otherwise?
Well, it's a little bit of a selfish position to take. Might sound harsh. I get it. I go surfing. I have an amazing time. I surfed 7 times in 3 days last week. And it doesn't bring me down. It makes me actually feel better that I'm in a natural wetsuit because I care for the planet. There's a brilliant quote from Alice Walker: activism is the rent I pay for living on the planet. Brilliant. And loads of our activism is in our pockets. It's in our money that we choose to spend. And yeah, we want to escape, but we can't. Every single thing that we do, our sport is affected. Our sport, lifestyle, whatever you want to call it, is affected by big global issues. You know, like climate crisis is a classic one. People go, I don't want to talk about that because I just want to go surfing. Well, there's a report by Jonathan Porritt that says by the year 2100, if we carry on as we are, between 3 and 6 billion people will be on the move. So we won't be able to go to those equatorial banned surf spots and surf those amazing coral reefs because it will be completely uninhabitable. The food won't be there, the population won't be there, and there'll be war zones and conflict. So although it's a bit of a heavy one, we need to kind of get our heads around this. And then here's another little tiny one, and it's an alternative view, but maybe a slightly more humorous one. We don't know what's going to happen at the end of our lives, but just imagine that we're kind of checking out, hoping to go into this kind of nirvana, lovely life, and the guy with the checklist is going, hang on a second, you didn't kind of support the progression of the planet towards an eco-environmentally, and you're sitting there not able to get through the gate, but all the people who made the right decisions are surfing the most amazing, long, perfect left-hand and right-hand point breaks.
Yeah, and you'll stand there on the outside of the gates looking back thinking that was the right thing to do as well.
Yeah.
Knew it.
Yeah, I knew it, but I just thought, no, I can just hang on. And we're seeing this flip from petrochemical, carbon world, etc., to a world that is kind of renewable. You know, the biggest selling car in the posh thing is a Chinese version of the Range Rover now. And we're seeing these shifts all the time. And we need to be part of that shift because the world will be better. The wetsuits will be better. The surfboards will be better. And we should just demand that. You know, it's our money. If we all add up what we spend through our lives on the surfing equipment, it's quite a lot of money.
I mean, that's right. We all individually have that obligation to do the right thing. And when it comes to the availability of natural rubber wetsuits, be it the price point or just the availability of them to buy full stop, how do you feel that's coming along? Because I just don't want to talk too much about, you know, individual companies or anything, but I feel like a lot of them, when especially around the big sea coming out, a lot of them sort of did a bit, made a couple of suits in their range, natural rubber, raved about it for a season, for a campaign, and then now they just kind of, you know, now it's just one of the suits they sell as an extra. And I see that a little bit, you know, but is that getting to a point now where people are saying, hang on, we need to switch completely?
There's this danger that surfing tries to exist in its own bubble. And meanwhile, all the other industries are all moving past it. So, you know, we don't want to be the last dirty little people using, you know, nasty little neoprene, you know, for our version of a condom. You know, I don't want to be like the last person doing that.
No.
And when you look at the companies that have led the push, you know, the Patagonias, the Finistairs, the Seaskins, and you look at the others and you're going, come on, everybody, make it all your wetsuits. And it's a bit like, there's a classic picture in something like 1913 of a street in New York, and it's all horses. Everything is horse-drawn, and there's like one or two cars on the street. Something like 10 years later, there's 2 horses. Everything is cars. That's the moment we're going through. And if a business can honestly say, try and keep using petrochemicals, then I think they're not thinking properly about how to run their business. Surfing needs to keep that edge. And the business world, you know, like if people want investors are increasingly going, I will invest in a company that has good sustainability and environmental policies because they're going to be a safer bet. I will see a better return on my investment if they've got the environment and social as well as making money at their
Feeding
core.
back into the triple bottom line.
Yeah.
What in surfing and I guess the surfing world gives you hope?
The very nature of it is this kind of edgy stuff. You know, it's on the edge, it's creative, it's got mavericks all over it, from, you know, the free surfing professionals to the professional surfers to everybody who goes surfing. And it's not just the competitive side of it. There are amazing surfers doing brilliant jobs out there at the moment, at the highest level in, you know, some governments, some other businesses in the renewable energy sector. They're all surfers. They're brilliant surfers in their general lives as well. But I know they carry that spirit with them. And the other thing that gives me real hope about surfing is even back in the days of the formation of SAS, we knew that surfing punched way above its weight. And it was because it's the ad man's dream. Everybody uses it to sell their version of the world, from washing powder to surfing, the net, the web, etc. So surfing is that ultimate sales point. And when we get our act together, we can absolutely be one of those drivers. And that, again, you know, when we go up to government, that still happens. They want that association with surfing. Those are the bits that make change happen. And it's brilliant for it.
It is. What is the easiest thing a surfer can do to reduce their impact on the environment?
One, just understand it. Ask yourself a couple of questions. Why am I surfing this surfboard? Why am I wearing that wetsuit? Can I buy better at my next choice? Love your wetsuit, love your board. Try and look after them. When you're done, pass them on. If you're traveling, you're going to love this one. When the climate came up, they went and asked the editors and owners of Lonely Planet and Rough Guide about climate. And obviously everybody's going, oh God, travel less, stay longer. What's not to love about that? So none of those kind of like 2-3 day surflets. Take the time. But communicate, talk about it, make it, change it to be the norm. And let's all be part of that. Those are big changes that we can make. And remember the power in your pocket. It's your money. Demand change, pull the solutions through, And we can create all of this. It's the flip is really quite quick. And I think we can make that flip. And I think we will be the generations that will make that change happen.
So strike missions are okay, but they have to be for about a month and a half.
Yes.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Good to know. That's great.
Be a yaysayer. Don't be a naysayer. It's all too easy. And I think it's one of the default positions we go, oh yeah, but turn that round and go, yeah, we're going to do this. So be a yaysayer. Electric cars, you know, there's one that's we've seen that massive change. You know, whinge, they'll never go as fast, they'll never perform. They're better, they perform better, and they will do, you know, and they've only just started. And then this kind of weird thing that we're sold, you know, like white surfboards. Boards have to be white. We got over white bread a long time ago. We know that a guilty pleasure maybe on a Saturday morning when it's been a bit of a night before, we might go there. But we know that that's not good for us. And in the same way, if the environmental solution might not look quite how we think it should look, then embrace that change. It probably means it's not white bread.
Oh, it's good, isn't it? He's good. So Chris, it's probably what, 35 years since SAS was founded, and you know, you've been in the industry a bit longer than that. You know, after all these years, what still gives you hope?
Well, this gives me hope. People give me hope. And surfing absolutely gives me hope. It's the bit that when I feel a bit like I need to recharge, I go there and recharge. And you pick up that energy from surfing. And you look at what SAS achieved in the 1990s. You know, we helped trigger a multi-billion-pound spend on the cleanup of the coastal waters. You know, there used to be 2 crude sewage outfalls down the coast there, each discharging 2.5 million gallons of crude sewage coming in here. It was the same at Newquay, 5 million crude a day. And people like Tom Carroll, Tom Curran would stand next to us and meet MPs. And the tourist industry said we need to ban surfing in Newquay if this lot don't get shut up and go away. But we won. We helped deliver that sewage treatment works. And I see surfers pushing the edges right around the world, making amazing difference in their professional lives, but also in their personal lives. And we need to remember we are a tribe who's ultimately really connected to nature, and we will take that and we will protect it and we will make this a better planet.
Yeah, and I think that final point can't really be overstated. What changes this area and the UK underwent during the 90s thanks to SAS, and also thanks to you for your time. I really appreciate it. Cheers,
Lovely.
Chris.
Brilliant, Jimmy.